When dashboards define competence. You sit through status meetings where the slide deck looks healthy, the dashboard is green, and the notifications never stop. Yet the customer still waits, and the defects keep coming. The cost is familiar. Time gets spent proving work instead of doing it. Visibility replaces effectiveness when the proxy for progress becomes the product of the system. A proxy is a measurable signal. Tickets closed, hours logged, checklist completed that stands in for real outcomes when outcomes are slower, messier, or harder to observe. When incentives attach to the proxy, competence gets defined as what can be displayed, not what actually changes. This replacement doesn't happen because people suddenly stop caring about results. It happens because systems run on constraints, and measurement is a way to compress reality into something that fits those constraints. Here is one explicit constraint. Leaders cannot directly observe all work, all quality, and all impact across time. Attention is limited, approvals and budgets require justification. Risk pushes organizations toward audit trails. The dashboard exists because direct knowing is expensive. Now the trade-off. When you choose what is easily visible, you lose what is slow, contextual, or nonlinear. The proxy gives speed and comparability, but it strips causality and meaning. A neat chart is portable. Actual effectiveness is often not. Once a proxy is installed, incentives form around it. People are evaluated, promoted, and assigned based on what the system can count. Teams learn, often without speaking it out loud, that what is not in the tool is not real. That is a feedback loop. Measurement drives attention drives behavior shapes the numbers then validate into measurement. Add another constraint. Coordination requires shared language. A checklist is a shared language. A ticket count is a shared language. They make work legible across roles, but legibility is not the same as truth. It is a negotiated simplification. This is where proxy drift enters. Early on, a ticket represents a unit of value delivered. Over time, the ticket becomes a unit of activity displayed. The system can't easily measure the customer stopped escalating or the future became less fragile, but it can measure 10 items moved to done. So people learn to split one meaningful change into many small tickets, or to select tasks that produce visible artifacts rather than tasks that remove root causes. The dashboard brightens while the underlying problem persists. Metric gaming doesn't require malice. It can be a rational response to incentives and constraints. If a team is rewarded for speed, they reduce scope, avoid hard cases, and push complexity downstream as an externality. If a team is rewarded for utilization, they keep themselves busy, even when waiting would improve quality. If a team is rewarded for on-time updates, they become excellent at narration and mediocre at resolution. The proxy also invites capture. A tool meant to provide transparency starts to rent attention. People spend more time feeding the measurement because the measurement is what gets meetings funded, approvals granted, and blame diverted. The system begins to treat visibility as a substitute for trust and then as a substitute for impact. So the question, when does visibility replace effectiveness, has a mechanical answer. It happens when the marginal reward for improving the number becomes greater than the marginal reward for improving the underlying reality, and when the underlying reality is harder to verify than the number. Under those conditions, the proxy becomes the battlefield, and effectiveness becomes the collateral damage. When dashboards define competence, attention narrows. Work that is quiet, preventive, or relational becomes vulnerable because it does not announce itself with clean timestamps. The system starts paying for what it can display, not what it can stand behind. That shifts responsibility in subtle ways. People feel accountable to the instrument panel rather than to the outcome. They learn to treat the proxy as the audience, and the customer as a distant rumor. Meaning thins out because the purpose of work becomes self-referential. Create the evidence, satisfy the gate, pass the review. The loss isn't only efficiency, it's integrity of focus. You can end up with competent performers who are competent at being seen, competent at updates, competent at checklists, competent at maintaining a story, while the hard work of changing reality becomes a side project. And because the proxy is objective, it can hide the value choices underneath it. Whose time counts, whose pain counts, what kind of risk counts, what kind of craft counts. A system that over-optimizes visibility will eventually confuse surveillance with stewardship. It will confuse motion with progress. It will confuse a tidy record with a truthful one. There is room for a disciplined reflection here. Name one metric you serve, one number, one status label, one dashboard color that shapes what you treat as real. Then name one value that metric might erase when it becomes the center. Durability, care, understanding, safety, learning, or simple honesty about uncertainty, not as a confession and not as a performance, just as a way to see the incentive in the light and to notice what the system permits, constrains, and ignores. Visibility is useful, capture is costly, proxies are necessary and dangerous.